Say hello to my guest, Todd Brinton, here at LSI 2023. Todd, thanks for coming by.
Thanks for having me.
The big journey from Stanford Biodesign to Chief Science Officer at Edwards Lifesciences. Tell us more.
So, it's been an interesting transition. It's actually 4 years now. So I left Stanford. I thought I'd never leave Stanford in a million years. My dream place to work. But it's been a really great opportunity. 4 years now, just over 4 years since I moved, relocated from Northern California to Southern California. People talk all the time. They're like, "What's the difference?" I'm like, kind of like splitting hairs. They're all pretty good.
Yeah, you were original issue at Stanford. I mean, you were there for all the early days, and how many times the graduation, and there you are. Here's another cadre, year after year. I didn't think you'd leave either, buddy.
Well, I had the dream job. I really did. I mean, it was between clinical practice. I was on the faculty there for 15 years as an interventional cardiologist. Between teaching biodesign and then also having the opportunity to kind of work on a number of projects on my own and with others, it was just the perfect setup. It took a lot to get me to leave in it, but it was time for the next challenge.
But Todd, when you say projects, let's break that down. You were working in startups.
Yeah, I was. I was an entrepreneur, and I was learning at the same time as I was doing. So the nice thing was the opportunity to see stuff every day, and then to work on some of your own ideas. And so I worked on a number of companies, founded several, was CMO of several other companies, early stage. Not all successful. In fact, most of them not successful, but a few of them kind of got there, which is nice.
And so how did you bring that spirit to Edwards?
So the idea was that I wanted to bring more of an entrepreneurial feel to the opportunities I had, and I think the challenge was from a number of my colleagues was, I don't think you can innovate in a big company. And so that was really kind of, they threw the gauntlet down and said, can you do it? I said, I think that you can if the conditions are right, and particularly I thought that we could do it at Edwards. And again, Edwards has been a very successful company, so now you got a really high bar, like can you innovate? A company that's innovating incredibly well, but can you continue to innovate, I think was the real question. And a company that is extremely patient-focused, but really had very engineering heavy. Tremendous engineering. I think that was probably the thing that struck me the most when I got to Edwards is how strong the engineering is. Extraordinary. I mean, I come from Stanford, which has probably the biggest brand in engineering that there is in academia, and to a program I thought, oh, well, this is going to be kind of early. Very advanced engineering, deep knowledge base, particularly in tissue and technology and materials. And then took all that and kind of thought, well, how can I kind of combine this stuff? And how can I think on what can I add? And it was really needs-driven innovation, a company that really needed to be a little more focused, I thought, or at least learned how to flex the other muscle on kind of clinical and kind of market issues. And so we've tried to bring that to Edwards, initially in advanced technologies, the group I'm directly responsible to, but now kind of permeated in all the divisions of the company.
So sort of helping Edwards, you've got all these skills, but if you just played together as a team and effective as a team, did you find is that part of what happened?
It's part of it, but I think it's also focus. It was, needs driven as opposed to tech push, as just another way to think about innovation. A lot of real great, this is the company that brought the first artificial heart valve, right? First mechanical, first pig, first bovine, and first catheter-based heart valve. So huge structural heart disease company, but what next? What was, in a sense, also aortic valve, pulmonic valve, mitral valve, tricuspid valve. I joke all the time, we're running out of valves, so what's the next thing? And I think that the next thing is continued focus on structural heart, but thinking beyond valvular heart disease.
And the ability to bring that spirit of biodesign, unmet need and focus on, patient outcomes, are you finding a receptive audience?
Yeah, no, very receptive. In fact, the way this originally started was actually Edwards started coming to the course that Josh Mackauer, myself, Jay Watkins, and Paul Yock taught on managing innovation, which was an executive course. And so they started coming probably 5-6 years before I made the transition. And so they started kind of buying in, and then they started a program inside Edwards. And then Stan Rowe, who was ultimately the chief scientific officer before I was, really started saying, hey, this is a new way to think and add on to what we're doing. And he was ready to kind of take the next step in his career. And he thought, hey, maybe we'll bring this down. And so it was kind of the natural progression for me.
So you go from one sort of academic playground, now you're in a big commercial playground.
Yeah.
Have you really felt that like your wings are going out, you're taking a big breath in a new field?
Yeah, but it's a new challenge, new set of skills. So I went through the stages being an engineer early. Was an engineer initially in industry, early startup. Then went back to medical school. That was kind of transition where I learned to get my clinical training. Then went to academia. Then entrepreneur, and then I figured, well, let's try the next thing, which is to join a corporate. And it was the challenge first of all. But it was the challenge, the opportunity to really reach out, make big impact. And structural heart disease, if you look at kind of where we're in the cardiovascular, I'm a cardiologist. I love cardiology. So where we were in the progression of kind of our knowledge on kind of coronary disease and stents and where that had gone, kind of hypertension. Valvular heart disease was a really big thing that was still, there's this huge opportunity. I mean, huge under treatment, US and globally. And so the chance to kind of innovate and make big impact in that space, that was really the challenge that I really wanted to take on, was how do we really grow that? Not just, hey, there's been great progression. People think, TAVR has been an incredible innovation. This idea, the fact that you can have a catheter-based procedure and have a valve replaced and a good number of patients go home the next day, that's big. But then how do you scale that? Not just the fact that you invented and created it, but how do you really make it impactful for a large number of patients? And I still think this is just the tip of the iceberg, even for TAVR. We think that we really have a huge number of undertreated patients in the valve space, particularly aortic. But if you look at mitral, you look at tricuspid, we're talking about low single-digit penetration in the United States and globally. So huge opportunity to grow. But then it was like, what's next? So if we work on that penetration, then the question is, what are we going to do next? And that's kind of what I've taken on. So little skunk works programs, not so little anymore, thinking about, what's going to be beyond valvular heart disease. And we got a lot of ideas of what those are. Same thing, got to take a lot of shots on goal because they're not all going to work, but that's kind of the fun thing. So for me, being able to work on stuff internally, develop technologies, develop early kind of clinical testing, early feasibility, being early human and build things at the same time, look at technologies outside of Edwards and then be able to bring them in and then develop them. That's kind of the nice, that's what I enjoy so much about the job.
It's astonishing to me. I hear you talk about we've got this insane technology. We're, borderline science fiction. I mean, I always use, when I'm giving a talk, what does minimally invasive really mean? I always use heart.
Yep.
They used to crack the chest. I mean, in our lifetime, I don't know, were you trained in medical school for open heart procedure?
Oh yeah. I mean, everything was open heart. There was no TAVR. In fact,
exactly.
when I took the boards the first time, there was no TAVR. TAVR wasn't approved. It was 2011. I mean, it was pre-time. So it's been a very short span of time to actually develop this.
Yeah, in 1 decade, you're using a catheter to change a valve in a heart that's still operating.
Yep.
It's crazy.
No, it's an incredible innovation. Talk about the triple win, this opportunity to be impactful, reduce mortality, cost, effectiveness, incredible way to make big impact. And so, everyone's looking for that big, opportunity that's out there. We're still looking on what's next, and that question is going to be, we think that's probably going to be tricuspid and mitral. We think that's going to be the thing that follows. But I say that saying what's next from a development perspective, but we're still very, very minimally affecting aortic disease. And the number of patients that are sitting who have actually severe aortic stenosis, very, very big medical problem. I mean, people talk about they know what heart attacks are. They're kind of hearing lately with what's happened in the NFL, sudden cardiac death and arrhythmia and ventricular fibrillation. But now it's like, well, wait a minute. I mean, if you sit 1 month with this aortic stenosis, severe aortic stenosis, the mortality rate's 4%. So you think about, you carry that out 6 months, those patients are sitting, and particularly with the pandemic, where we had patients not going to the hospital, we took a major hit in patients with valvular heart disease. So now we have the opportunity to recover. But the challenge is the awareness of it and screening for it.
So Todd, let's unpack that, Todd. So what happened in the pandemic? I think people have this illusion that, well, hospitals were so busy, healthcare is doing fine. We weren't doing these kinds of surgeries, probably got categorized as elective if you've got to have a bed for a COVID patient, or I've got someone who needs to have a heart valve. Is the line going around the block to get to these patients?
Yeah, so I think the challenge is that I think we're going to see that the impact of COVID is not just COVID. We're going to see this for the next decade, which is the number of patients that were afraid to go to the hospital, not appropriate to go to the hospital, that put off their procedures, and then ultimately didn't have therapy, who died, or their disease is advanced to a stage that's much more difficult to treat. And so I think that we're seeing that now. Now, is there a backlog? We're still having trouble getting staff back. The healthcare system took a huge hit. And so I think we're seeing staffing levels finally starting to come up, but they're still not the level they were pre-pandemic. And if you think about a labor-intensive procedure, operating room, open cardiac surgery, cath lab procedures, they're procedures that probably are going to be the procedures that are not done as quickly as some of the other cases are done. And as a result, I think we're still seeing that we're not treating as much patients as we can. We're seeing some positive signs of things starting to move in the right direction. But ultimately, even that is still not where the bottleneck is. It's on the screening side. So we're just not seeing patients who get screened. We're not seeing patients who, we kind of think of this as you're getting older, right? So you're 70, you're 80, not moving as much as well you were before. And as a result, what can we offer you? Well, that's okay, just slow down. A lot of the times it'll be aortic stenosis. And so not ordering the echo or seeing the echo and saying, you're probably okay when I see you back in 6 months, and then saying, hey, granddad or my dad passed away because of this, that's unfortunate. Sometimes it's aortic stenosis.
So is there anything behind the curtain that you can talk about, or are your skunk works like deep stealth?
Most of it, I have to say, is skunk work. It's still, and we'll be bringing it out as it comes out. And we're starting to bring clinical trials, but most of it is early feasibility trials, trying to get evidence, trying to kind of perfect the technology. I think most of what people see from Edwards is our critical care business. They see our surgical business still, a growing business that's growing, actually quite nicely, where most of the businesses in surgery are kind of moving away because people think, let's kind of think about going to minimally invasive. There's still a great role for surgery for patients. The TAVR business and the TMTT business, tricuspid and mitral.
So Todd, now at Edwards, you're at a hyper-technically skilled company. I mean, everybody there is expert in some aspect of what they're doing. How do you give a career path to these really skilled technical people?
Yeah, so thanks for asking. It's we have 2,000 engineers at Edwards, so it's a very engineering-heavy organization. As I said, very patient-focused, and obviously really important to have those other aspects, clinical marketing, and obviously the manufacturing capabilities. But the core is R&D, and so one of the big things is fun place to play. I have a company that's organically growing. 18% of our net sales goes back into R&D. That's huge. So it's a great place to play. But then how do you develop your career? And so for us, we've thought about it and thought most companies have two tracks in a sense, kind of a management track and they call individual contributor track. We've thought about it a little bit differently, which is we've got a management path for engineering for people to progress, but we have kind of individual contributors at the junior stages of individual contributors, but then ultimately we have what's called technology leaders. And so these are folks actually, when you get to the director level, that basically can move back and forth between management leadership, people leadership, and technology leadership. So think of it as if you're a people leader, you kind of have a major in people and a minor in technology. If you're a technology leader, you have a major in technology and a minor in people. So these are usually our best mentors. So they're usually mentoring a large number of engineers. They're the people you go to solve kind of big technical problems. They kind of take on the big challenges. And now we actually have a path where you can rise to the top of the company. In fact, we just named our senior fellow, a Lowell Edwards senior fellow, which is our biggest technology leader at Edwards Lifesciences. So you can actually stay an engineer. You want to be an engineer and you think, I don't want to get pulled, but if I want to grow for career growth, do I have to kind of become a manager, a leader? The answer is you have total opportunity to do either one. And we have a number of people that are moving back and forth. They'll take on a challenge for a period of time on a project, and they'll say, no, I want to go back to managing people, and then they'll flip back and say, no, I want to take on this project. So it's total equal pay, equal compensation at each level. So that's been something we've kind of brought with it. We think will create more opportunity, because I think we needed 2,000 engineers. We need to make sure we recognize the strength of our engineering talent. We need to make sure we had retention, that they felt that they belonged and they had a mission, and then ultimately that they felt that they were being rewarded.
Wow, Todd, that sounds like a great setup, because I think a lot of my friends that were, they were in a large company, they wanted to go take a flyer on some idea. There was no pathway for that.
Yes.
You're stalled, or you're going to do this, or I'm sorry, your next rung on the ladder looks like that. Take it or leave it.
Well, I think we want engineers to try and, if they have a choice, to be able to spend the majority of the time being engineers, right? As opposed to saying, well, we now want you to manage this large group of people, do annual reviews, do all the overhead, the HR issues. That's a skill set that's really, really important, in fact, essential to the company. But it's also essential to have people that are totally dedicated to doing R&D.
So part of that sounds like you're able to cross-pollinate and people are able to go back and forth. Biodesign is all about truly cross-functional teams. Is this enabling Edwards to do that, or is there still more work to do?
No, it's absolutely enabling. So I think a lot of it came from some of the things and experiences I learned at Biodesign, which is I think we're taking it beyond engineering. This is kind of hopefully the first step. We're doing the same thing with kind of our marketing organization. We're also doing the same thing and thinking about our clinical organization. And I think times have changed where it used to be that you ran to your KOLs, your top experts, you built something, you built the widget, you ran to your advisors and you kind of sat in a meeting and said, what does it look like? They tested it out and you went back to them 3 months later, 6 months later and got input. The innovation cycle is so fast, you need to have much faster input. So this idea of putting clinicians, engineers, marketeers at the same table, manufacturing people, engineering for manufacturing, all new product development experts and bringing them all together and sitting on the project from the very beginning gives you the chance to hear all those voices. And most importantly, we bring patients in. We have the chance to, so we have even, in fact, this next week, we have patient day at Edwards where we bring a number of patients. I think we're bringing back 50 or 60 patients, and we have listening sessions. Our engineers get to listen to the problems that our patients have, what it's like to go through a cath, what it's like to go through a TAVR procedure, what it's like to go through cardiac surgery. What was the hard part? Was it, the time before, after, recovering, the drain that was put in, the IV was the worst part, I didn't like this, the procedure, I still have this problem, or it was smooth, I like this part. So they get to hear that. That's an important element of the kind of the multidisciplinary approach too. It's not just about the people that build it, it's also the people that have the need.
Todd, that's incredible because I think about like the times I'm early stage guy. It's being at the first cadaver, the first animal study. And then, maybe there's one or two guys, they're going to make the case or they'll maybe get to go in the theater and watch, which all of that unraveled at COVID. Nobody could get in.
Yeah.
So now you've got engineers that are out there designing product, never seen a case, don't know what the workflow is, haven't talked to a doctor, much less listen to a patient. I think that's genius.
Well, but it's the problem of scale, right? You get bigger, which gives you a lot of advantages, but could have the risk that you could get farther away from the patient. Our goal is to bring it back to kind of having everybody be right next to the patient. So these are patients that have consented. We fly them back to Edwards. They spend the day. In fact, our patients get to see in the valve business, they get to see the person that built their valve. They get to meet the person who sewed their valve. They get to track the carry card. This is the person who built it, did it, and that person gets to meet the patient. They get to hear about it. Then they have these listening sessions that we have someone moderate. They get to ask questions. What was it like? What did you think it was like? What did it feel like? How bad was the pain? So they get to understand the clinical problem we're trying to solve.
Wow.
Yeah, powerful.
Yeah, well, I can remember, some of the moments that I have whenever, we've seen so many companies come through, the Stanford Biodesign community is vast and deep. And how many times has it been, oh yeah, I went, this guy, he got banged on the head playing rugby on Crissy Field. Just happened that Concentric had just done a training on that ER, and that saved that guy's life. He comes to the Christmas party, thank you that I'm alive, and my kids were really happy that I was. It's just unbelievable the difference you can make. That's incredible that you bring that patient voice. I can't believe that. I made your valve. I hope, how's it doing?
Trust me, there's tears. I mean,
I bet.
It's powerful. And we're talking about thousands of employees in red shirts that spend the day. We shut down every day. This is all we do. And we have this clapping when people walk in, the 50 patients come in, we recognize them for the day, we go through. And by the way, we don't just do this in Irvine, we do it at all our facilities globally. So it's a different day of the year. So it's a chance for our engineers, our marketeers, our clinicians, people working in manufacturing summit to get close to the patient and the patient to get close to them. So we think it's, an important part of the ecosystem of how we think about the problem. And so again, it's back to needs-driven innovation. It's kind of listening, not just thinking about, not reading in a textbook, but actually getting the chance to interface with ultimately our customer.
Todd, you were excited about Stanford and you thought you had found this. Man, I cannot believe what's going on at Edwards. I think you have found a better home now.
Yeah, I'm not sure it's a better home. It's definitely, but it is a fantastic home, and it's a new challenge. I mean, it's an exciting ride so far. It's just the beginning. There's lots of things we're doing, and I'm very excited about the future.
Todd, thanks for coming by and giving us this deep insight into Edwards. Thank you.
All right, thank you so much.
Todd Brinton, take one.